South Korean activists said they would refrain from flying anti-North Korean leaflets over the border at the start of the year. But earlier this week, another group did it again.
Well, this is just one of many groups in and outside of Korea dedicated to reminding the world that something more must be done about the dire situation in the north.
And regardless of their noble goals, some fear their actions could do more harm than good. And joining us in the studio today is Thor Halvorssen, president of the Human Rights Foundation. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Well, first up, Thor, the first very general question we would have for you is, I guess this will be at the tip of everyone's minds. How effective are these anti-North Korean propaganda leaflets? Or is it just the act itself? It's supposed to be meaningful to get the attention from outside of North Korea and
It's
South
a good
Korea.
question. And if you talk to North Korean defectors that received the leaflets, and they tell you, I received the leaflets, and it was the first time that I could imagine that there was a different world, or that the South Koreans would not kill me if I defected, a lie that is spread in North Korea regularly. If you talk to those people, the leaflets are very effective. Leaflets are only one of many different ways of getting information into North Korea and having people enjoy the opportunity of peering outside the hermit kingdom, finding out other things that they had no idea about. In some cases, cartoons. In some cases, it's fiction. In some cases, it's photographs. Everyone has a different story of what moved them to change, to seek a different life, or to oppose the government.
Right. Well, back in the 80s or the 70s, we had the other way around working in terms of leaflets being flown. North Koreans were flying leaflets to South Korea. How would you compare the effects of this and that?
Well, they actually, historically speaking, they were both doing it. Both governments are doing it. The southern government was doing it. The dictatorship in the south was flying them north, and the dictatorship in the north was flying them south. Now, this was certainly not something that the various Korean groups invented. This has been used in Europe, in Eastern Europe. It was a way of getting information across the Iron Curtain into East Germany, for instance, into countries that are living under Soviet dictatorships. So are they effective? Yes, but the key is they have to contain the truth. And the truth is a very powerful weapon. It is one that engages in nonviolence, and one that is clearly, after seeing how the North Korean government responds to this, clearly a weapon that they're afraid of.
Okay. Well, do you think the South Korean government has the power to stop you or other activists from flying these leaflets across the border? Because what we've seen before is that the government seems to be concerned about these leaflets, perhaps maybe it could raise tensions on the Korean Peninsula, but at the same time, they don't seem determined to actively intervene in this issue.
Well, to respond to your question, do they have the power to stop us? Well, of course, they're a government. They have guns. They can most certainly, they have the power to do it. Do they have the authority to do so is another matter. The Constitution of the Republic of Korea allows freedom of expression. And certainly what these activists are doing, whether it's by sending USBs or DVDs or leaflets and educational material, do they have the authority to stop that? I do think that there's a case to be made, quite effectively, that if the North Korean government retaliates because a public launch is done, and a balloon is sent up publicly on 4 p.m. on a Tuesday, and it's announced, and the North Korean government retaliates with gunfire, that can affect people in those local areas. And in those cases, I think that these balloon launches should be done in private. They should be done in a clandestine manner. But other than that, I don't think that there should ever be illegal to send information and share, no different than it would be for me to hand out leaflets outside this television station.
It's really well publicized before and during and after your group or any other group tries to conduct these activities. So people are wondering, is it necessary for you to attract so much media attention, or is it your intention, or does it serve a purpose, or could you actually work without all that media hype?
Well, the 2 balloon drops that occurred earlier in the month had nothing to do with the Human Rights Foundation. So that's certainly not, that criticism can be aimed at them. The balloon drop that we did was not announced in advance. So we announced it the day after, and we had a press conference the day after. And we certainly think that that matters. Why it matters so much is because the North has sent assassins to kill the people doing it. That should give you a sense of why it matters so much to them and how effective this is. The North Korean people are starving for this information. They want this information. They ask for this information. And many of them are willing to risk their lives in order to get it.
Okay. Well, let's briefly talk about the movie, The Interview. I guess North Korea is not very happy about that movie. But you guys were originally going to send or fly these movies, DVDs, to North Korea, but didn't. Why? Why
we certainly are going to.
Okay.
Oh, we most certainly are going to.
Will it be effective?
Now, is it going to be effective? In speaking yesterday with a person who was in charge of the equivalent of the psychological operations unit at the very high levels of the military of North Korea, he described the film's effect as that of having a nuclear bomb effect in the mind of a North Korean about its government. Now, you have to consider the absurdity, the fact that we're talking about how a single movie, a comedy, that in some cases is funny and in some cases not that funny, a movie is upsetting a government so much that they have a 3-star general in charge of a task force to stop it from getting into the country. That tells you a lot about the North Korean government. And it tells you, if they're that afraid of comedy, oh my goodness, what would they do to drama and fiction?
Well, I am deeply concerned about the level of insecurity the country has. So we could be, I guess, shaking up the hornet's nest a little bit. I do hope we could approach it somewhere halfway between, the direct and aggressive approach and a little bit more gentler tact. That's just my personal.
And the gentler tact involves what? Sending them more money? Sending them a sense? Sending them hookers, money, and whiskey?
Something in between what you were doing and what the government
What
is
is in
doing.
between, though? Well, the in between. There are 20-something million people living in the most totalitarian, oppressive nation in the world, and people in South Korea seem to want to avoid even discussing it. It makes them uncomfortable. They have relatives up there. Let's not talk about it. Let's not even go there. We need reform and moderation and dialogue. Anyone who talks like that should be willing to spend a year in North Korea living in the same conditions that the North Koreans live.
Speaking with great empathy, thank you so much for joining us today
and for having me.
Correcting a certain, I guess, flawed perception of your activities today. Thor Halvorssen, thank you so much for joining us. We hope to have you back here someday again.
Have me back and visit hackthemback.com if you want to learn more. Hackthemback.com.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.